You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the March 25th meeting for the Michigan City Planning Commission. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Michigan City Plan Commission. This is Tuesday, March 25, 2025. We'll call the meeting to order. And Mr. York, if you would like to give us a roll call.
Absolutely. Mr. Balling. Mr. Connolly.
Here.
Mr. Dabney.
Present.
Mr. DeMedici.
Present.
Mr. Granquist.
Here.
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Klender.
Here.
Ms. Tieta.
Here.
Mr. Warner.
Present.
And Attorney Hale.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We'll proceed with the meeting here. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. If there's no changes or additions or deletions, we'll take a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve.
I will second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Connolly.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. DeMedici.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Klender.
Yeah.
Ms. Tieta.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Moving right along, we'll move to approval of the minutes. If everyone's had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting. Any changes or corrections or motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Call for the vote. Mr. Connolly.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. DeMedici.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Klender.
Yes.
Ms. Tieta.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Aye.
Motion approved.
And we're pleased to have some development happening in our community here. We have two petitions for us tonight. One is a petition for a rezoning, and the other is for primary plat approval. We'll start with the rezoning petition, P-100-25. Tryon Meadow LLC is requesting a rezoning from R1B to R12B and R3A for a mixed residential community consisting of 34 single-family homes, 14 four-unit townhomes, and 8 apartment buildings located on the south side of Tryon Road between Breezy Lane and Mayfield Drive. His parcel numbers listed here, but we won't read those right now. So if the petitioner is here for petition P-100-25, if you'd like to present, come on up here to the microphone, introduce yourself, name your company, and tell us about your project here, what you've got going, and the application here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having us here. Very excited to bring new development to Michigan City, as you stated. My name is John Kopchak. I'm a managing member of the Sloan Avenue Group, Redstone Group joint venture. Thank you again for having us here. And we're also very excited to be at the Power Breakfast tomorrow. So excited to be part of the community. I'd like to give you guys a quick overview of the project and our requests. And then we're here with my great team of our engineers and construction managers and others to answer any questions. So the summary of the project, moving on to the next page, I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with it at this point, but I'll go over it in detail. So Tryon Meadow is a new residential community that will be uniquely situated within a short drive of downtown Michigan City. So it's walking distance to Shady Creek Winery, a great short bike ride to many attractions like breweries, and very close to the interstate. So it's epicenter of a great quality live, work lifestyle. And there are several developments close to the site, namely Mayfield Prairie and the Woodlands. As mentioned, the site currently zoned R1B is about 39 acres with frontage on Tryon Road. and it's close to Mayfield Prairie, which is zoned R1D, single family residential. We are very focused on providing quality workforce housing that's naturally affordable. So we anticipate that, subject to market conditions, but we anticipate that at least 75% of all of our available units will cater to households at a 80 to 120% AMI range. And it's also a very unique community because we like to bring many housing types together under one roof. So here you'll see rentals, townhomes, and single-family homes. And I think there's a great division amongst all those community types. And as you'll see in the site plan in front of you, they all blend very nicely. So going over the pipeline on the next page, we have been working on this project for a while with the help of many members of the city, and it's been a great relationship so far. We got our economic development agreement approved, formally signed on January 1st of this year after a special meeting of the Redevelopment Commission. So we are basically in full swing on the creation of economic development areas, establishment of allocation areas, and issuance of economic development revenue bonds. We also got the Phase 1 preliminary drainage plan approved, thanks to Al Wallace and his team. And we also received feedback and quotes from the water department. So I've been trying to, with my team, make as much progress as possible. So this project is far from a new speculative project. I will add, we also own the land already, so we're fully invested. And as you know, right now we're seeking zoning change and primary plat approval from this planning commission. If all goes well, which I anticipate it will, starting in the second quarter, which hard to believe it, but that's already starting next week. Going into Q2 of this year, we'd love to get council approval and actually start site work. And site work will probably take a few quarters, clearing, grading, water storms, and things like that. And we'd like to complete site work around this time next year, and then start vertical construction shortly thereafter. So ideally, Q3 of 26, we'd love to launch sales. And everything right now has been going according to plan. Again, moving in partnership with many members of the city, which have all been really, really great to work with. So going into the next page, the site plan, as you know, it consists of 8 rental buildings split evenly between the north and south sides of the property, which again creates really nice diversity, both visually and for community building. We also have 14 4-unit townhome buildings and 34 single-family homes. There are also multiple ponds that serve as visual buffers. We also have a couple parks, and we already have a pretty robust landscaping plan for the north end of North End Apartments by Tryon Road, which is up here, also in front of you, and also on the right side of the screen. We are phasing the project, which I'll go into on the next slide. But the last thing I'll mention is that the building types that are proposed are either the same or substantially similar to those that we've previously built. So you'll see in the appendix, for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we're vertically integrated. We have in-house land development, construction teams, and we think that we're very proud of the quality of our work, and we only bring product that has been vetted and refined over time. So going into the next page, the phasing plan and zoning info. So we are seeking a zoning change from R1B to R3A and R2B. We intend to phase the project. There's 3 phases, with the first phase consisting of 8 single-family homes, 13 4-unit townhome buildings, and 4 16-unit rental buildings. And then phase 2 has the majority of the single-family homes. And then phase 3, which is the last phase, is that north side. So that's the current phasing. And then in our opinion, the site is quite efficiently laid out. There's no 2 backyards of single-family homes or townhomes facing each other. And our single-family home lots are actually wider, believe it or not, than those of the neighboring Mayfield Prairie subdivision. So we feel pretty good about how everything's laid out. And I'll kind of go over this quite quickly, but on the next slide, the townhomes that we anticipate having for sale here have been a bestseller in other markets like West Michigan that we've built several hundred of these in already. 1,800 square feet, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. And they're in groups of 4-unit buildings. So it doesn't feel like a super dense building. It's very livable. So it really optimizes space and price point. And then going into the next page, the single family homes for sale. Our aim is to really cater to buyers that want a semi-custom home finish at accessible price points. And then finally, the multifamily rentals. Again, something I'm very proud of is we actually design all of our product from the ground up with the help of our engineers and with the help of our in-house architects. So if you look at a building like this, we actually created this from scratch, from just building design, architecture work to all the MEP. So we're very proud of the quality of our work, and we really take a lot of time to optimize space and efficiency and price points. So that's the project. Again, I'm here with my team to answer any questions, but just want to emphasize how excited we are to be here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your work and the presentation of this petition. We're focusing right now on the zoning petition. Does the commissioners have any questions of the petitioner? You have questions? Okay. Nothing from the commissioner. I think you explained it well. We received a packet with some good information in there, and most of us have had a chance to review that and take a look at that. And we thank you for the development here. Mr. York, do you have any staff reports in your report?
Yes. I can do that right now, and then I might add some things afterwards, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just to kind of flesh out a couple of things that John went over tonight. But let's start with this. This is petition P-100-25 Tryon Meadows rezoning, Tryon Meadows LLC. They're requesting the rezoning of 3 contiguous tracts of land from R1B to R2B and R3A. Staff analysis at present, the 3 parcels are vacant and being used for agricultural purposes. The proposed rezoning also includes a subdivision under a separate petition, 901-25 sub 1. The proposed future use of the land is to include, is to develop 34 single-family detached units, 14 4-unit townhomes at 56 units, and then 8 apartments, 8 apartment buildings with 16 units in each building for 128 units. The associated subdivision will be 50 lots total, if I'm not mistaken. Did I get that one right? 50?
That's correct.
51, that's right. 51
The north
lots
side is
total.
1 lot.
Got it. Knew I missed one. According to Indiana Code 36-7-4-603, and considering a request for zoning, the Plan Commission shall pay reasonable regard to 1, the comprehensive plan, specifically the land development plan. 2, current conditions and the character and current structures and the uses in each district. 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. 4, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction. And 5, reasonable development and growth. I would like to point out that the whole reason why I started the conversation with John when he came to me was that this piece of land is actually identified for exactly what he's proposing in our comprehensive plan. I want to read that to you. It's actually identified as a suburban general residential land use category. So this will be the future land use plan. If we were to wave a magic wand, that's what we said it would be in 2017, 2018. So this designation pertains to the current and future residential developments, includes detached residential dwellings, attached housing types, subject to compatibility and open space standards. Examples are duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, and patio homes. Planned developments with a potential mix of housing types and varying densities, subject to compatibility and open space standards. Development types, D-type, detached residential, attached residential, characteristics, combination of automobiles, on-sites. However, garages are typically integrated to the front facade of the dwelling and hidden in behind the dwelling, with driveways on the sides of homes and occupying portions of the front yard. Less openness and separation between dwellings compared to suburban character area due to the size of the parcels and proportion of the building footprint and parcels. Applicable zoning districts. I'll just skip no, applicable zoning districts. So what it's saying is that if it was to be rezoning, these are the applicable zoning districts: single family R1B, single family R1C, single family residential R1D, waterfront residential R1E, townhouse R2A, townhouse R2B, manufactured housing park R4. This was an excerpt from our Momentum 2040, the comprehensive plan, and specifically the future land use plan. And there's a map in there with those designations of, you'll find suburban residential SR land use category. Staff makes the following findings. Number one, that the staff finds the proposed rezoning is consistent with the future land use plan as presented in the comprehensive plan. Number two, that the requested change in zoning is consistent with the surrounding character of the current structures in the general neighborhood area. Number three, that the requested zoning will not be injurious to the surrounding property values and will further the conservation of property values within the area. Number four, that the area in question is suitable for the proposed requested rezoning. And number five, that it is not spot zoning, which will confer special benefit to a relatively small area of land without commensurate benefit to the larger community. Number six, that the requested zoning change will better promote and facilitate the development of property and the preservation of values, environment, and uses in the surrounding area. Number seven, that the property and its location is well suited for the proposed zoning change. Staff recommendations. Planning staff has reviewed the proposed request for the rezoning of the 3 tracts of land and recommends approval of the requested rezoning and forwarding this petition to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation. So that's my staff report. I will say that when we first considered this, we were looking at a planned unit development, which you guys just approved a planned unit development, the Moore. But honestly, it's such a large chunk of land and it actually offers natural separations, if you will, just inherently because of the topography and what's on the land right now. So they basically had to kind of plan unit develop it in this manner that you're seeing laid out here. So I think they did a really good job of laying it out. It probably could have been much more dense if they wanted to do that. But what's being brought to us tonight, I think it fits with with what we intended for the comprehensive plan. And honestly, that's why we didn't go with a planned unit development route, because this actually just makes sense to do it this way. And they're not trying to create something that's either requesting lots of variances from our zoning or lots of variances in density, things of that nature. That's kind of why when you use a planned unit development or you're trying to create something super unique. Anyways, and then John had mentioned in his presentation about the beginnings of an economic development area and the creation of that. This will eventually come back to Plan Commission in the form of you will be asked to approve from the Redevelopment Commission the beginnings of a housing TIF. And that's why, as part of this project, you heard John say that he was holding 75% of them at 80 to 120% AMI. That's basically, he's agreed to, if we would do a housing TIF and help provide infrastructure fund financing in the form of the bonds, which he mentioned, he would do the 75% and hold those. So that's how that worked out. I know that was kind of mentioned in there, and I want to just make sure you understand that you will see something else on this later on from the Redevelopment Commission.
Sounds like a good opportunity for our community. And Mr. Chair, want to continue with any department reports?
Yes, please. I did speak to the water department today. He sends his apology. He had glazed over this one, but he assured me that he has provided John a preliminary cost estimate for all the infrastructure, I believe, in the project.
That's correct. It's been a real pleasure to work with them.
Let me get this. Sorry. Sure, I'm on the right one here. Yep. All right. From the city engineering city engineer has no opposition to the requested rezoning from R1B to R2B and R3A for a mixed residential community. And actually, he's the only one who provided me a recommendation back on that issue, other than the fire department has no issues with the request, and they typically only provide me one if we're sending it as one petition, but that was their thought. And like I said, the water department did provide me a response back. You have Mr. Al Wallace here tonight, and you heard that he's already provided approval of their drainage plan, so you have that as well. I did receive a remonstrance. It was from a Mr. Brian Spieth, and he sent this on March 13th, 2025 at approximately 9 a.m. And I'm going to read that. Greetings, Mr. York and Plan Commission. I moved to Michigan City in Mayfield Drive at the end of 2013. I chose this location because it is in the city, but it looks like we're out in the country. I'm not in support of the apartments and townhomes coming into this area. I would like it to remain single-family residence. Mayfield Drive has already gone through tripling of our residents since I moved here, and this 200-unit development would drastically change the area. Also, it will greatly increase the traffic on Tryon Road. Most people are not obeying the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, many of them traveling between 40 and 50 miles per hour, which makes it sometimes difficult and dangerous to pull out on a Tryon Road. Is there such a thing as a speed bump rated at 30 mile per hour? If so, could we have one of those at the Mayfield Drive area on Tryon Road? Adding this much traffic will make it more dangerous, and it will be more difficult to especially turn left on Tryon onto southbound Carwick. I appreciate the opportunity to make my voice heard. Thank you, and have a great and blessed day. Brian Spieth, 102 Mayfield Drive.
Thank you, Mr. York. And that remonstrator is a neighbor adjacent to the property here. Let's pause here if any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. York on the staff reports or department reports. Just give you an opportunity to ask any questions on the staff, anything?
I just wanted to address the question of the traffic control, because it just struck my thoughts as I looked at the remonstrance letter that you read. I don't know that that's within our purview, but I'm curious if the city has had thoughts on that topic.
So it is within the purview, and I had Miss Angelica do a traffic an analysis, because really before it becomes a full-blown traffic study or how's it go first? Analysis? Study, I think. You do an analysis to see if it warrants a full-blown study. And I had our city engineer review the numbers today. And we all know where Tryon Road is. And naturally, yes, you're going to have more cars on Tryon Road. Is it traffic? No. I wouldn't call it that. I would call it more cars on the road. But does it warrant an upgrade to the road or things of that nature? I do believe the city engineer has concurred that it does not meet that significant of a traffic impact.
Yeah, basically the initial investigation for traffic that we received showed that it'll generate less than 3,000 ADT. That's annual daily traffic, basically. So for a collector road like Tryon Road will be, if it's between 3,000 cars and 11,000 cars a day, that's basically what that road is designed for. So right now, with adding less than 3,000 to it, it's much less than 3,000 now. There's plenty of capacity on Tryon Road at this point.
And as Mr. York described, it's consistent with the long-standing comprehensive plan with the zoning requirements and the zoning plans that's been in that area for some time. So it's all consistent with that for the growth and development in the community.
Mr. President, may I, and it also sounds like maybe there's an enforcement issue, which we deal with that a lot through Board of Works. So we may have to address it with our police department and maybe have them tell them to maybe set up a either speed monitor or sit out there at maybe some strategic locations, which they will do that.
And there'll be time for that. He is projecting a year or so before they start doing any vertical building and sales and so forth. So we can work through all of that issue.
And I also want to indicate there is a stop sign, three-way stop at Royal Road and Tryon, just right adjacent to this property by Mayfield. So the speed there where this road is going in will be hard to get up to 50 miles per hour from that stop sign. If you're blowing that stop sign, well, yeah, but then we have more problems than the speeding going on.
Thank you, Mr. York. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll.
Any question?
I don't have any other information unless you have questions for me and about what's coming next or any of this presented.
But I'll ask Attorney Hale for your report and
Yeah, I have a question.
verify that all notices have gone out and everything's prepared for our consideration tonight.
Before we move on, I have a question.
Yes.
And this is not a technical question or anything like that. It's just something that I really want the public to hear. Because when we get in these meetings, they hear all the technical stuff about what's going on. And I want you to explain, because this will be in the paper, of course, and this is where I want it to be. Please explain, why did you choose Michigan City? What made you want to come in Michigan City? And I want the people to hear someone talk good about our city.
Of course. Well, it's hard to answer that in such a short amount of time. I mean, how much time do you have? Maybe there's a sleepover tonight here. I don't know, but
I have paid time off at work, so I can hang out.
Well, look, I think it's you're putting me on the spot here. I have to prioritize a lot of great things, but look, I think a lot of things have to work together. I think the economic growth in the city is key. I think without that, we wouldn't be here. But that in and of itself is a function of strong execution by the public sector and the private sector. And then it creates a self-reinforcing virtuous cycle of growth and more economic activity and interest and, more creative housing options. So I think that obviously the infrastructure growth here has been tremendous. So I think that the economic growth is a result of all that hard work, partnership between public and private sector. And I think that we are just a small snippet of that. But again, kind of like I've been saying all along here, I think that in terms of just speed to market and execution, working hand in hand, I think it would be unfair to call out one or two people, Skylar, but there's been a ton of people here in the city that have been really, really great to work with on multiple facets of this. And I think that this project might be a case study of just speed to market and the public and private sector working together. So I think that I'm incredibly honored to be one of the projects that will help further ignite the growth and frankly, supply much needed housing. But I wouldn't be here without such a great partnership. So I think that execution is really important for us. Just the level of focus has been incredible here. So it's not just putting stuff in the papers and dreaming up concepts. It's actually doing it and having timelines. I'm a big fan of timelines. I might have gone a little bit overload with that in the presentation, but it's important that we stick to timelines, and we've got so many different timelines in this project, but all of them have been working. So I'm very appreciative of that partnership.
Thank you. And now I'm going to ask for forgiveness rather than permission of putting you on the spot. So thank you for that. I know that's a tough question for somebody to just come out and ask you. So I appreciate that. And thanks a lot.
Of course. Thank you.
But the short answer was the beach.
Yes.
Right.
The
And
beach and people matter.
there's a lot of development in the community, and there's a lot of call for in economic development, commercial development. We've got our 80s CMC working with commercial development. We also appreciate the residential development here, a nice little subdivision and so forth, and providing housing. That's a big need in our communities for good quality housing. With that, we'll turn back to Attorney Hale for your report and information.
Thank you, Mr. Granquist. My report for petition P-100-25, petitioner and owner Tryon Meadow LLC. My report is on the request for rezoning from R1B to R2B and R3A. Initially, I would note for the commission that I've had an opportunity for several days to review copies of all the notice documentation. I now have all of the original notice documentation. I find that it's in order. it is satisfying our requirements for notice, and you're free to consider this matter this evening. Next, this is a large development. It consists of 39 acres, as Mr. Schuyler pointed out to you, 34 single-family home sites, 14 four-unit townhome sites, and 8 apartment buildings having 16 units each. A big development. And this area is big enough, 39 acres, to consider the rezone request. But to develop this, the petitioner has indicated to us through his applications that not only does he need rezoning so that he will have the appropriate site for development, but he also needs approval of his major subdivision primary plat this evening. My report is this report will just focus on the rezone. Rezoning is something we've all done many times. You're all familiar with it. You understand the process. We do not approve rezoning. I've said that before. We can approve this petition, but our job is to send the petition after a thorough investigation onto the Common Council, and they actually enact an ordinance that approves the rezone. We must send this on to the Common Council with a certification of with favorable or unfavorable or no recommendation. As a result, after you vote on the matter, the petition itself, I'm going to ask that you also consider a certification that will go to the Common Council. I want to add finally that the record in this matter is as set out in my report, which you all have a copy of. But I want to add to that so that we're clear that the record also includes the rest of the information that has come from the petitioner, including his presentation, the traffic data that he sent to us, which is 3 pages, the stormwater plan approval, which is 6 pages from Mr. Wallace, who's here this evening, giving approval of the stormwater plan. So that's part of the record. And the handout that the petitioner gave us this evening with additional information, including indication of the park area, which Mr. York talked about. That's 4 pages. That's part of the record. And you also have a copy before you, which is part of the record, of the presentation photographs that were on the screen. So all of this is part of the record tonight and part of the petitioner's application. That's the extent of my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Hale. Any questions from the commissioners for the attorney report? Yes.
Yes, Mr. York, Schuyler,
Yes.
I got to own up to not having done my homework very well. That the rezoning request is from R1B to R2B and R3A. And your applicable city zoning districts does not show what R3A is.
Gotcha. Yeah. So those are, hold on. Give me a second. Back out of here. Give me a second. Good call. What do I do with my report? Yeah. Consider report. What do I do with it? I guess I lost it.
And your presentation
Yeah.
says that it's a short walk to Shady Creek. I don't know about a short walk.
That's
Depends how fast you walk.
Yeah. Unless you're just going all the way up there and then you walk it off coming home.
no, yeah. So R2, well, I'm sorry, let me get the zoning.
R3A.
Yep. R3A is actually a a mid-rise multifamily is what it is. And then R2B is a
Townhouse.
R2B is a townhouse development. So you're talking about low rise. That's what the A's, I'm sorry, that's what the A and the B's basically control, heights and density. That's what those do. But both of those are a townhome development and a multifamily development. So the R3A, if you see in your report, sorry, go back to this map. If you go to page 3, your R3A is actually only on the 2 apartment complex. The 2 lots that are zoned for apartment.
Okay, all right.
And then if you see the R2B, the reason why we had to go to R2B is it's a townhome development, but it also allows single family development in it. So it's stacked but you can't do apartments in that.
All
You
right.
can only do apartments in the R3A.
Okay.
And that's what it's zoned for. So that's why we chose R2B. It allows townhomes and single family in there.
Okay.
Single family detached and
Thank-
single family attached.
Thank you.
And there's 3 separate zoned sections in the developments. So they're separated, R3 in the north and the northwest, southeast, and R2 in the middle.
Yeah, and remember I said we thought about doing a planned unit development. Honestly, I don't like doing planned unit if I can make it fit into the zoning. And with the request, with the looking at the land use, the future land use map, it made more sense to kind of, rather than creating another overlay, like a planned unit development basically becomes an overlay, let's just use the current zoning that we have to make it work. So that when somebody reviews it in the future, I'm not here, it's easy to review it. It already conforms to the underlying zoning. So the setbacks are right, the lot sizes are right. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my subdivision code.
Yeah, the questions from the commissioners. Thank you for your presentation. And then I can't see the picture there, but we'll open it up for a public hearing. If there's some comments here, and I don't know if that shows anything or anybody has a question about it. So does anybody have a public comment? Anybody in the room like to make a public comment?
This is Tommy Kolovic from 1316 Ohio Street. Good evening, distinguished and honorable planning commissioners. Just want to mention, the same thing with the Moore Road. I don't know, we don't do question and answer back and forth, but could I inquire to the petitioner who the general contractor is going to be on this project? And the other thing is, since this has been set up in a residential TIF zone, does that mean our hiring ordinance has to be adhered to, or could they get anybody to, since it's a private development, anybody to that he wants to do it? Thank you.
Mr. York, would you like to respond to the hiring?
It is outside of the realm of the hiring ordinance. He will be selling his own bonds and we're just giving him access to tools to do so. That's essentially what it is.
And while it's not question and answer, but do you have a contractor in mind?
Well, as you can imagine, for a project of this size, we'd like to source as much local labor as possible. We are doing a neighboring subdivision in the city of LaPorte as well, and we've taken great strides to also use a lot of local labor there. So, but we build everything ourselves. I mean, we occasionally sell some lots here and there to other builders just to increase speed to market. But as I mentioned, we're vertically integrated. So we've got our head of construction here as well, if there's any specific questions about types of lumber we use or anything like that, but we build ourselves mostly.
And just keep in mind, they will have to go through the same thing everyone else does, just like our other subdivision registration, license, you'll hire licensed contractors, registration, et cetera, through our building department.
And a lot of your construction is still forthcoming down the road, some site development and then into next year. So you don't have all that information immediately at hand.
Yeah.
Is there any other public comment on this petition?
Hi there, distinguished people and Skylar. That was a great presentation. I know the town is almost universally behind this development. I too have questions. I understand the format. I'll throw it out there in any case. It's really good to hear. There's so many positives with this development. Mixed income levels, mixed housing types equals good development. It has been shown. It's just better to have a mix of things. So I'm really happy to see that here. I'm curious as to the dimensions of the single family lots. That's just a curiosity of mine. Given that this has been billed as workforce housing, up to 75% of it meeting the AMI guidelines, I know a concern the community has shared in the past is extending the bus route down Tryon Road, which is a little outside this, but perhaps the developer could fund and build a bus stop as part of the plan. That's very relatively inexpensive. If we're worried about volume on Tryon Road building over time, currently now it's more than adequate for the foreseen this development, but there's looks like some other 40-acre parcels out there that could be developed to the same density. I don't know if the easement there allows a widening of the road down the road for maybe a center turn lane, but perhaps that's something forward thinking. We could think about expanding the roadway easement to plan for future growth in that corridor. It's interesting that the land use plan, that the zoning for this parcel doesn't currently support what the long-term plan was. This seems like very sensible zoning. I don't know quite what the difference is with the PUD versus changing the zoning. Must just be a technical, more bureaucracy, and zoning is a cleaner way to get these built. So I support that. It's also very encouraging to hear a developer like Mr. Kopchak here say, it's been a pleasure to work with the city and the various city departments. That's something we have not heard a lot of in the past. I don't know if it's because we have a new sheriff in town or things are just coming together within the administration, the departments, and the people we have in place, because there have been a lot of positive changes there. But again, as a member of the public, it is really good to hear that the city is working towards these things. And we hear the negative, but we don't often hear the positive. One of the questions I have is, given the TIFs that are going to be involved, would this be considered two things? How much public investment is that versus private, like, i.e., how much does that leverage the public? How much private does that leverage, i.e., what's his budget? And would this be considered a public-private partnership? Because that's also good development in municipal affairs. One of the complaints we often get in local social media is they need to build things for people who live around here. And I would like to point out, with these income guidelines and the price point they're trying to hit, the 75 to 120 of the AMI, that by definition is it's not high-end housing. It's middle class. It's made for regular working people. Some people will be shocked that 300,000 is now essentially not high-end housing. $60,000 doesn't get it done nowadays. But this project demonstrates that it can be done. Good development can exist, and that it's coming here to Michigan City. And I support your, I'm sure, positive recommendation to the Common Council. Thank you. And I thank them for wanting to do this development here in Michigan City. And it's another thing the public needs to know, that frankly, this is a consequence of the double tracking that has brought Michigan City to the map, that has brought these development dollars to Michigan City. Pretty soon, we're going to be approaching $1 billion in developments, I think directly attributable to the double track. So to the poo-pooers out there who say this town needs to be the way it was, no, it doesn't. It needs to grow, and this is how it needs to grow. And it's these long-term plans that have led to this kind of potential finally happening here after decades of stagnation. Again, kudos to all involved, and I wish them good luck. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. This petition regards the rezoning issue once we're done with this, we'll move to the primary plat subdivision plans, and I'm sure there'll be more comments and explanation for all of us regarding the subdivision and some of the lot sizes and some of those kinds of things that'll be coming down. Petitioner, do you have any final thoughts or comments regarding the rezoning petition?
No, I think this has been we've been pretty thorough, hopefully. Thank you.
Is there any other public comments from the room? Is there anybody online that wants to make a comment? Okay, public comment is closed. And we can move to any last minute questions from the commissioners, or we've heard the staff reports, departmental reports, attorney's report, petitioner's presentation. So if there's no more comments, we can entertain a motion. And the initial motion would be attorney's two-fold motion to approve the petition, and then secondly, to recommend the zoning change to the council. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the first vote or motion could be to approve the petition and adopt the findings set forth in Mr. Skylar York's report. And then I can advise about the certification in a second.
So is there a motion regarding the petition and the staff report?
I'll make a motion to accept or recommend the petition as written and along with the incorporating the comments from Mr. York.
I'm sorry, can we add to send that on to the common council with a favorable, unfavorable, or a no recommendation?
And to send it on to the common council with one of the different options according to how our vote.
Pick one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I say favorable. That's my motion. I thought you wanted me to list all of it.
I will second that motion as amended.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote.
Yes. Mr. Connolly. Yes. Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. Domenici.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Klinder.
Yes.
Ms. Tieta.
Yes.
And Mr. Warner.
Aye.
Motion approved. Don't go anywhere.
Okay. Attorney Hale, said you had some more comments regarding the recommendation, or have we covered?
No, you have in front of you, in the packet that I left with you, a certification of the Plan Commission of the City of Michigan City, Indiana, which sets forth your determination this evening, sets forth findings that relate to this petition and your decision, and indicates that you are forwarding this with a favorable recommendation. And it ends, the above certification is hereby presented to the Common Council of the City of Michigan City, Indiana, as a favorable recommendation of the Plan Commission of Michigan City, Indiana. And we need a vote to approve that certification.
Do we have a motion for approval?
I motion to approve the certification.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of the certification. Mr. York, want to call for the vote?
Yes. Mr. Connolly.
Yes.
Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. Domenici.
Aye.
Mr. Granquist.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Klinder.
Most definitely.
Ms. Tieta.
Yes.
And Mr. Warner.
Aye.
Motion approved. Congratulations.
We thank the petitioner for the presentation. This has been petition P-100-25 for rezoning of the property. We've made positive, a favorable recommendation to the city council, but we'll have to go to the city council for their review and passing the ordinance to finalize that. Then next, we'll move on to second petition 901-25, Tryon Meadow LLC. It's the same petitioner, now requesting a primary plat approval of a major subdivision for a mixed residential community, again consisting of 34 single-family homes, 14 four-unit townhomes, and 8 apartment buildings located on the south side of Tryon Road between Breezy Lane and Mayfield Drive. Same parcel that we just talked about there. So, petitioner, please present the information on the subdivision concept and what you plan to do there, and maybe address some of the anticipated questions of sizes and things like that if you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having me here. As previously mentioned, we are very focused on creating multiple housing types that cater to naturally affordable price points and workforce housing. And we, on this parcel, have several product types, including apartments, townhomes, single-family homes. The townhome buildings are consisting of 4 units per building. We intend to build them around 1,800 square feet each. And the single-family home lots are mainly like 65 to 70 feet, 55 to 70 feet wide. That's a range, but I'd say the average width is 55. So by 125, so quite deep as well. And we have several apartment buildings both on the north side and the south side of the property. Again, we're a vertically integrated team in terms of in-house land development, architecture, construction teams. We'd like to pride ourselves on our quality of construction. We've collectively built several thousand units in the last few decades. I'm here to answer any question on this primary plat approval.
Are there any questions from the commissioners on the primary plat subdivision?
Yeah, I have a question. This is regarding the pocket parks, which I notice are on the north and what is that? On the north corner of the lot, of the parcels. And it seems to me that the density is like pretty significant where the apartment buildings are toward the south end. And does it make sense to maybe have a pocket park closer to where that density is greater and less green space?
It's a good question. What do you think? I'm going to consult with our engineer real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, y'all figure it out real quick.
The brain behind the operation.
I have some comments on that later too, with respect to the park. Just FYI.
Be on my bottom. They will get wet.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah, we basically there are options to add that, like another kind of dry bottom pond / park situation. So we'll definitely incorporate that into the plan. We currently have 2 pocket parks on the northern side, as you see. So maybe we can shift that around a little bit. We're happy to address that.
Thank you.
It's certainly possible, and we will implement that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Mr. York, do you have a staff report on the subdivision and any department reports?
Yes, give me 1 second. Just writing some thoughts down so I don't forget them. Tends to happen.
Sure.
Okay. Yes. Okay, this is a report for petition 901-25 sub 1, Tryon Meadows primary plat, Tryon Meadows LLC. Request approval of a major subdivision in association with a requested rezoning. Staff analysis. The property in question is currently zoned R1B single family residential zoning district. The property is proposed to be rezoned to R2B and R3A and subdivided into 51 new parcels of land for 34 single-family detached units, 14 4-unit townhomes for 56 units, and 8 apartment buildings with 16 units in each building for 128 units. The land is currently used for agricultural use, and the only remaining structure is a grain silo on the site. The subdivision also includes new city streets and infrastructure and will require easements and future dedications. The subdivider will work with the sanitary district. Has worked with the sanitary and water department for preliminary permitting of the development. The subdivision does include a proposed phasing plan, and the development will be completed in 3 phases. Once the property is rezoned, the proposed primary subdivision will conform to the new zoning classifications. Any approval should be contingent upon approval of the full rezoning approval. A traffic analysis was provided for the proposed subdivision, and the daily trip calculations will produce more daily use, but not to the point of causing issues with the existing roadway. Although a waiver for the open space was not requested, the city planning department is recommending a waiver to allow the developer to create 2 half-acre each pocket parks within the subdivision. The adherence to the subdivision ordinance would require 1,000 square feet per lot, and that would be 51,000 square feet. So they're actually proposing a dedicated open space of 1 acre, which is 43,560 square feet. So the subdivider would be requesting a waiver of 6440, and I'm sorry, I did that calculation on 50 lots. But essentially, I think you guys could probably hit 50,000 square feet if you actually wanted to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to grant the waiver. At the time, we were thinking we wouldn't be able to hit that, but actually you're pretty dang close to it. So why don't we just skip the waiver and hit the 50,000 if that's okay with you, John? Can we do that?
Okay. Yeah, I think we can do
make
that. Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So let's nix that. And then here's my proposed findings. Number 1, staff finds that the proposed subdivision conforms to the requirements of the proposed subdivision ordinance for major subdivisions. And that number 2, that it conforms with our zoning ordinance once the requested rezoning is granted from the Common Council under petition P-100-25. Staff recommendation. Planning staff has reviewed the proposed primary plat and requested subdivision and recommends approval subject to the following condition. Number 1, the approval is contingent upon approval of the rezoning being considered under an additional petition P-100-25. And then just some additional information. The reason why I thought the waiver might work is that you have Krieger Memorial. I'm sorry, not Krieger Memorial. You have Krieger Outdoor Center over there at the Krieger School. You have connections to the trail there. The Marquette Trail comes through. You're very in close proximity to Shirley Hines Land Trust over there. So there's a lot of options, which also makes this such a great opportunity for development here of connecting to these great outdoor spaces, not to mention our beautiful beach. So,
And Friendship Botanical Gardens.
Friendship is there. There's so many opportunities there. Carwick is a really nice road to ride on. It also could connect to the trail at Ruth that's coming across, and Victory. Oak Hill Park is there. You also have a connection to the grocery store there, which again, I'm just adding some flavor to just this is a really great opportunity for this project at this location. The reason I know Tommy had asked about city buses. I would just say that keep in mind we don't want to really put a stop out in the middle of nowhere. We want to make sure we get these infrastructure built because these will be city roads. They'll be dedicated to us. They're built to a standard that Mr. Warner has reviewed with our developer, and these will be real city roads built to city standards. So we will have potentially buses coming down them in the future. They'll be able to handle the traffic and everything of that nature. They're not asking for any waivers or variances from anything like that. And then the last comment I'll make is that you heard me say that once the rezoning is approved, this plat will conform to the rezoning specifications found in our zoning code for the requested R2B and R3A. That's it.
Any departmental comments or reports on the subdivision part?
Yes. Fire department has no issues with the request. Mr. Wallace provided a copy of his report with his comments from the drainage review. I will not read those because they're very extensive. If you would like it, I will provide it, but
But they will be in the public.
they will
record.
be made part of public record and his approval. City engineers no oppositions to the comments and to the primary approval of the major subdivision to allow a mixed residential community at Tryon Meadows. I would also add that I have spoke with the schools as well on this one, just to kind of go over. They did ask me, and I spoke with them about it. And honestly, I think they're pretty excited to have development around Krieger because that is one of the schools they are trying to get more population in. So.
Thank you, Mr. York. Any questions from the commissioners and for Mr. York and the staff report?
Yes, a couple a quick question. A pocket park, is that anything like a lot? Where you
Like a what?
a parking lot?
No, it is just a pocket park, meaning it's a smaller version. It's a small park, a place you can go recreate in, walk around. It might have a trail, a ring around it to walk.
Oh, okay.
A dog park. This is basically a small park. It could have swing sets and things of that nature in it. Yeah. I would also add that you may notice something interesting on this subdivision. It does not have any cul-de-sacs, which is something that we did not do intentionally because we would like to see the stub at the bottom. Hopefully, maybe eventually follow through and eventually connect to Springland, which I think would make some really great connectivity and probably really help out our schools at Springland with respect to just circulation in general in that general area. And it provides a rear access out of the space once it's finished.
Would that be on adjacent land?
Yes, it would. And so we're planning for adjacent growth.
Anticipating future growth.
Yeah, future growth.
Any further questions from the commissioners on the staff report? And we'll move on to Attorney Hale, if you have a report on the subdivision plan.
Yes, thank you. I did file a second separate report for petition number 901-25. The petitioner owner again is Tryon Meadow LLC. The engineer surveyor is Duneland Group Engineering and Surveying. The request is primary plat approval for a major subdivision. My report is essentially the same as the report that I gave earlier. I would summarize it to say that I've had an opportunity to review all the notice documentation. That notice documentation is sufficient. It complies with our requirements, and you're free to consider this matter regarding primary plat approval. Next, I would note that the matter of items included in the record is the same. All of those items that were applicable and included in the record for the rezone request under P-100-25 are also included in the record for this petition 901-25. Finally, I would note that you were all used to requests for primary plat approval. We will have some construction of infrastructure as this development proceeds, and that will end with a petition for secondary plat approval, which will come before this body for consideration and approval at some time in the future. What we need tonight is a vote to approve or not approve this petition for primary plat approval. I would note that approval should be contingent upon and subject to the condition that the Common Council of this city grants the rezone request that was included in P-100-25. Mr. Schuyler York indicated why that is required. If you have any questions, you can ask. But with that, I would indicate that a motion to approve or deny. If approval, you may include a reference and approval of Mr. York's findings in his report.
Thank you, Attorney Hale. Are there any commissioner questions for the attorney report from Mr. Hale? If not, then we'll open up to public hearing. Any public comment on the subdivision on this petition 901-25 for the subdivision primary plat approval. Go ahead, step up.
Yes, this is Tommy Kolovic from 1316 Ohio Street, just to piggyback on what Skylar York said about the bus route. Currently, this isn't on the fixed bus route for the Michigan City Public Transit. Now, the nearest route that does serve is Route 1. I think all you plan commissioners and Board of Zoning, you need to have an understanding how Route 1 through 4 of the Michigan City bus route operates. The Route 1 only goes as far south as the mall property, it'll 20 in Franklin. It doesn't go down to Menards or Lowe's. That only if you want to, you have to transfer on, and that's quite a long route. Our bus route only circles once an hour. I just want to encourage anybody that's going to be there, send your students to the Michigan City area schools. We have an awesome school system. I know my students, they've all gone through the Michigan City area schools. I've had students, 4 of my family members since 2010 been members of the National Honor Society at Michigan City High School. They've been some of the greatest athletes that we produced. One of the most popular and by far the best looking and all that good stuff. So when I say, this would be a good thing, there'll be a good water bill customer. I know when the prison closes, I know Mayor Angie mentioned the prison is our largest water bill customer. So I think this is all a great thing, and I hope we keep it up. I hope we get more of this development. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Hello, Board. Scott Mellon, 200 Kenwood Place. Again, we all agreed this is good planning. This is you should definitely approve this preliminary plat. As we spoke about in the past, anything we can do to speed up the process, we approve this, it goes to the Common Council, pretty sure they're going to approve it. Then they're going to have to come back here for the secondary plat approval. And then that's probably going to have to go in front of the Common Council. No, okay, whatever. We all understand there's a lot of this back and forth, though, and anything we can do to speed that up. And a little off topic, and we're not planning the transit route here. That's not our goal here. But to plan for the future, my suggestion would be a bus stop on Tryon Road. If I read the plans correctly, that's where the apartment buildings would be, and they're the third phase anyway. So I'm talking 3 years down the road. And that would serve the entire development. And by then, perhaps transit reorganizes the route to pick this development up and more, for example. But we're thinking years down the road and not them circulating through the development. They have to walk to the main street. But again, I think we all want this to happen. Anything we can do to expedite the process would be appreciated by all, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments from the public? Anyone online? No one online yet? So public comment is closed. Public comment is closed. Petitioner, you have some final comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's very refreshing to see community support. So thank you. Hopefully that means we're doing okay here. So thank you. Very excited.
Thank you for coming to our community with your development project here. So we've heard Attorney Hale's comments and explanation on the motion that we need. Is there a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we approve the major subdivision primary plat for petition 901-25. Of course, that's contingent on the Common Council approving the zoning change on the previous petition of P100-25.
I will second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. York, call for the vote.
Call for the vote. Mr. Connolly?
Yes.
Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
Mr. DeMedici?
Aye.
Mr. Granquist?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Klender? Mr. Klender?
Yes.
Ms. Tieta?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you very much. Thank
so
you
much
for
for the
bringing the
opportunity.
development to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for considering Michigan City and bringing your development here.
Thank you so much. We're very excited. Thank you.
And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, some old business. Last meeting we had some introduction and explanation on the stormwater ordinance. So I understand we're going to have some more comment and explanation and direction on the Michigan City Stormwater Ordinance.
Yeah, and with us tonight is Mr. Al Wallace, who you've heard his name tonight, but please ask him questions. Drill him, ask him questions about stormwater.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would like to discuss briefly 3 items that I believe the Plan Commission would be interested in as it relates to long-term management of stormwater for future development that's contained within the updated ordinance. The first item is the current ordinance refers to 3 reference manuals when we're directing developers to design their standards to the Indiana Stormwater Quality Manual, Urban Watershed Forestry Manual, and Indiana Drainage Handbooks. And all these are really good manuals. However, in January of this year, the Sanitary District Board approved a new set of stormwater technical standards specifically for Michigan City. So as this process moves forward, and if this ordinance is approved, we've included developers must meet the standards as approved in early 2025. So that will be very beneficial to have our own local standards. The second point is within those standards, we do have a section specifically for low impact development. And by reference in that section, the standards refer to the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs, OCRA, their green infrastructure curriculum and training web resources. So they have a huge compendium of fact sheets on how to design and implement low impact development, especially infiltration basins, which we may use here if we have high infiltration rates and those sorts of things. So really excited about having the new standards in place and some of the technical guidance in there. And then the last item I just want to bring up briefly is as was discussed previously in the review of the Moore development, there is a maintenance agreement for developers to record on their deed that they will have long-lasting maintenance of their stormwater management items. And also the current ordinance talks about ensuring the quality of that installation. And there's some performance requirements for stormwater post-construction stormwater management, but currently the ordinance says once as-built plans are submitted, then some of those performance guarantees expire. The new ordinance, similar to what other communities are doing, we've included a new 2-year maintenance bond. So we've extended that performance for up to for 2 years. And then also we're requiring if stormwater management component includes storm sewers. We're requiring the videotaping of those storm sewers prior to submittal of the as-built so we can determine that all the storm sewer infrastructure has been installed correctly. So just wanted to kind of bring up those 3 items real quick. In talking to Schuyler, City Attorney Amber LePage, and the information Schuyler's provided to me from Attorney Hale, we're finalizing some of the specific language that the references in Appendix B and C that have to change. So that's been a long process. So our intent was to provide a quick update today, and we'll be coming back before the Plan Commission at the April meeting with a complete list of all the changes in the subdivision ordinances. And that would put us on track, if we get approval in April, to be able to go before the City Council in May to then have the City Council start reviewing these. So that's the current schedule we're looking at.
Yeah, so you wouldn't imagine how many times stormwater is referenced in our zoning code. You can probably only imagine that. It's a lot. Mr. Hale took the time to read our zoning code thoroughly and identify those in his time off, in his spare time, I should say, and identify them. We have them being, I have them being transcribed right now into a Word document by some staff in-house. Our plan is to, I will start reviewing those before our next plan commission. I will bring those back. Those will be inserted. I'm holding this because this is the actual ordinance that will go to council. They will be inserted into this ordinance as an exhibit called Exhibit B. That will be our comprehensive plan. So there's, as Mr. Wallace said, there's references in the Muni Code as existed that'll have to reference back, and Amber's got that included in here. But then we'll have to do our part. And what will happen was we will be asking you, the Planning Commission, to take our changes and edit and add, basically, because we have to re-reference. We have to take out what's there and re-reference it back to what Mr. Wallace is creating. I hope that makes sense.
I have a question. You mentioned video recording. Is that the installation as they're digging the ditches so you can see how it's built? Will that supplement an inspector approving it, or will it be in combination?
It'll be an additional step. We still have, working with City Engineer Tim Warner, we have John Gorsica, engineer for the sanitary district. He visits the construction sites daily to kind of monitor ongoing installation on trench preparation, bedding, backfilling. So he'll continue to do that. What the videotaping refers to is when the developer says, if we had to put in let's say 300 feet of 12-inch storm sewer to make his stormwater management work, when he says it's all installed, it's installed per code, all done, we're ready to go, before they leave, they have to hire a video inspection company to come in, put a remote camera down the 300 feet of 12-inch pipe, provide those results to the city so we can verify that there's no broken joints, leaky joints, offset joints, because that's a lot of the problems that we're dealing with now with older sewers is we want to avoid installation error, so we can have a level of certainty that that infrastructure is going to last for a long time. Because if the city has to take over some of those, we don't want to have to come back in a short amount of time and to fix something that should have been installed correctly.
And then what happens to those video recordings? Do they become a part of a permanent record? Are they in storage with the city then in some way?
Yes, they will be filed with the as-built drawings. So as developers, as you see the different development plans that are presented to the Plan Commission, per the current ordinance and future ordinance update, the developer is required to submit a final plan that says, okay, we had anticipated 100 feet of storm sewer here. We extended it 2 feet to be able to make it around the curve. So that's the process of the developer maintaining a record set on site of what's going on. So then we have the as-built, and in the future we'll have the videotape as well as a permanent record.
So you have the printed documentation as well as the video documentation to coordinate and have the record.
Correct.
In the last meeting, I believe you said there was going to be some requirement for ongoing maintenance by some of the developments. I noticed in some of the materials for our petition tonight, there was a draft of some like bylaws of a homeowners association. So is that still going to be?
Yes. Within the technical standards, we've included updated maintenance agreements that are a little bit more robust. Based on trying to protect the city long-term, put the city in a little better position to enforce those maintenance requirements.
Mr. President, that's been a major issue with a lot of our drainage ponds is enforcement. Mr. Warner's been dealing with it. I've had to deal with it in the past. I'm just glad to see it in our code now, where it's actually a little bit more teeth, a lot more teeth to it. So I appreciate that.
So what it specifies in the code, who is to include those? Is that just for subdivisions that have homeowner associations then, or how? What if it's just?
So that would apply to any future land disturbance of 1 acre or more. So it could be commercial development that requires stormwater management. It could be industrial development, residential subdivisions, but the Indiana codes require any land disturbance greater than 1 acre must have a post-development maintenance agreement. So separate to all these individual projects that we review and provide those recommendations to Skylar and his staff, as part of the city municipal separate storm sewer system, the MS4 program, we are required by our stormwater permit with IDEM to go out and inspect 25% of all these post-construction stormwater management plans every year. So in our 5-year permit cycle, we're required to look at 100% of all of these stormwater projects moving forward. So when the Moore installs their basin, within 5 years after the installation, we'll have to go out and inspect that. And we're keeping a running track utilizing our city GIS system to have those mapped on the GIS so we can see where all the post-construction elements are that we're required to inspect. And additionally, the owner is required to do their own personal inspection and submit that to the sanitary district annually. So it's kind of a self-reporting annual basis. And then throughout the 5-year permit term, the sanitary district MS4 staff is required to go out and verify that those private entities have been doing their part in maintaining their infrastructure.
What will be the requirements in the case of, for example, the Moore subdivision or the Tryon subdivision? There's homeowner associations involved with it, but some subdivisions may not have a homeowners association. They're just community subdivision. If there's some stormwater basin or something, who will be responsible for it in that scenario?
Yeah, so that gets sometimes into some legal issues. There are different provisions in Indiana code that talks about illicit discharges. So if those stormwater structures are not being maintained and there's sediment that's being passed through their measure into our city storm sewers, we would have the legal provision to address that from an illicit discharge point of view. But then it falls back upon some of the private owners there. So that's why moving forward, we're trying to set up these procedures where we have the 2-year maintenance bond to make sure we get through the first 2 years in good shape. We have the recording on the deed of in perpetuity maintenance agreement by that owner, and then the regular inspections by city staff to make sure they're maintaining it. But the issue of lack of HOAs or HOAs that are not functioning is prevalent across many communities that are dealing with it. So we try and, generally try a soft approach first to say, we built this stormwater management system was built. It's in everyone's best interest to make sure it works. Try and work with the owners and come up with some good ways to get some maintenance done. So it's a tricky issue, that one.
I might have some conversation apart from a formal hearing here, but obviously I'd be concerned about some of the documentation and if there's deed requirements and restrictions for homeowners and who's responsible for it. But those would be the kinds of things that we'd want to address. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I do. I have a question. The standards, if they're adopted in April, so for example, with the development that we approved tonight, will the construction of their systems will they be subject to the new standards?
Well, we've been reviewing new plans that come to us in light of the standards that were approved by the board. As engineers and developers have been contacting us since January, asking for our standards, we've been providing the 2025 version of the standards and having them designed to that. So we've already kind of started kind of a soft implementation of that. And the engineers have been responsive because the standards adopted by Michigan City are pretty standard across the region. So they're familiar with the standards and been designed into that for some time now.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
I had a question. Mr. York mentioned that the enforcement is more toothy, I guess we'll say. Does that include, for example, assessing some kind of a repair cost as a lien on property, for example?
Yeah, I have to kind of think the current ordinance versus the future one, but both ordinances they follow EPA regulations where if there's violation related to the Clean Water Act, it's up to a $2,500 a day penalty for those violations. However, in the ordinance, we've included enforcement policy that starts out with verbal or written warning, a notice of violation. I think it's $500 for first penalty offense escalating up to $1,000. So there are enforcement mechanisms. There's also stop work order or stop connection order. So if there is an egregious violator, the city would have the capability, after going through several steps, to actually dig up the stormwater connection and disconnect it from our public stormwater system. So that's pretty drastic. There are measures to, if the property owner isn't doing their maintenance, for city staff to come in and do some maintenance and then to try and recoup that money. So there's a few different ways to try and get that done.
If we're going to try to recoup these costs, can that be something that we add to their water sewer bill, or does it have to be a separate billing?
Usually it's done on a case-by-case basis, and it's especially with the potential enforcement fines. So it may be difficult to add to the billing, but it's something we could certainly pursue. We've been reviewing billing procedures jointly with the water department under the direction of our public works directors. So certainly that could be something we can investigate as well.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I know this is not a public hearing per se, but we do have some interested community members here. Do you have any questions or thoughts on anything you've heard tonight, or our Public Works Director, any comments?
You want to follow me? Yeah. Okay. Again, thank you. Good evening, Wendy Vacher, the new Public Works Director, Al indicated. And I just wanted to make a few statements. Number one, thank you. Thank you to Skylar and Tim and Al and everybody for doing this. Deferred maintenance and non-maintenance is the enemy of sustainable infrastructure. And it's just classic. We have it all over the place in all communities, in many cities, towns across the country. And it sneaks up on you because you don't see the pipes under the ground until they don't work. So I appreciate some of the comments that we've got. As Al mentioned, we had a meeting today, 2 hours, with the water department talking about how can we improve this? Do we understand how we're doing the building? How can we do efficiencies? Are liens the best way, or is there another way? So you're going to hear more about this in the days, weeks, and months to come, because we have to begin to look at maintenance. As we spend money, it's got to last. Think about your home. If you don't maintain it, it doesn't maintain its value, and it just takes more when you put it on the market to go to sale. So I just wanted to mention that, and I was glad that it came up and those came up, and you'll hear more. So we are excited. Also looking at fee ordinance, what can we do and how do we do it? If we're going to make a law and we're going to try to enforce it, who does that, right? So we'll be comprehensively looking at it, and all the support that you're providing for this is actually one of the most important efforts to look at it more broadly across the city. So thank you so much.
Does he have a 1-minute time limit?
I'm trying to slow down how fast I talk. I've gotten feedback. Scott Mellon, 200 Kenwood Place. It's great that we're updating this. We've been over this before. It really cleans up the code. But this, if I understand it correctly, is for new and ongoing developments. I would strongly encourage us to add maintenance requirements for existing ponds and drainage. I mean, last time I talked to them, that wasn't part of it. You know, ordinance changes all the time. A piece of a high-rise facade falls down, all of a sudden, every building of a certain height has to have inspections, facade inspections. So even though we may not have maintenance agreements with existing detention ponds, retention ponds, whatever the right word is. You guys engineers keep making up new words for a pond.
Cement is my favorite.
Cement pond, yes, those are the best kind. But that we put a requirement, if it's in the code that these drainage structures need to be maintained, okay, now it's in the code. And now the city has means to say, hey, your thing is non-functional. You don't want us to dig up your connection to the sanitary sewer, do you? You know, get that thing functioning again. So I would just strongly encourage us to include existing structures in the new ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. York, any final thoughts, closing comments? Any final comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I will just say to the last speaker that we are trying to use the good neighbor policy on some of these, and so far several have taken that into account. So we are looking at that as, hey, there's a problem with your basin, clean it out, make sure it's functioning, and that's, so we're looking at existing ones. We just don't have the teeth, as Skylar mentioned, to go after anybody who doesn't be a good neighbor yet.
And put it in the new ordinance.
Yeah, we have been fortunate enough to work with redevelopment of property where they've scraped, and that's kind of where we can catch them and say, hey, the pond isn't functioning. You need to fix it. Because you would have to build a new one. Was it vacant lot?
Okay, any of the public comments? Moving on to next item, commissioner comments and closing commissioner comments. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
We're adjourned. Consider us adjourned.